Let's open our Bibles to Matthew 20, verse 20. Matthew 20, verse 20. And we are also going to read John 13 from verse 1. We'll start with Matthew 20 from verse 20 to 28. And we'll read John 13 from verse 1 to 20. As we read from Matthew 20, I'll just go ahead and read. Mine has a subheading which says, Jesus teaches about saving others. Matthew 20, verse 20. Are you on Matthew 20, verse 20? Say, I'm here, Pastor. Are you not yet on Matthew 20, verse 20? Say, wait for me, Pastor. Right, everybody's there. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to him with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" She said to him, "Grant that these two sons of mine may sit, one on your right hand and the other on the left in your kingdom." But Jesus answered and said, "You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink and be baptized with the baptism that I'm about to be baptized with?" They say to him, "We are able." So he said to them, "You will indeed drink my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I'm about to be baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it is prepared for by my Father." And when the 10 heard it, they were greatly displeased with the two brothers. But Jesus called them to himself and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Let's go to John 13. John 13. John 13. I'll read from verse 2. John 13 from verse 2. Are you in John 13 verse 2? I'll read. "And supper being ended, the devil having already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, rose from supper and laid aside his garments, took a towel and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel with which he was girded. Then he came to Simon Peter, and Peter said to him, "Lord, are you washing my feet?" Jesus answered and said to him, "What I'm doing you do not understand now, but you will know after this." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." And Jesus answered, "If I do not wash you, you have no part with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also wash my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "He who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean. And you are clean, but not all of you." For he knew who would betray him. Therefore he said, "You are not all clean." So when he had washed their feet, taken his garments, and sat down again, he said to them, "Do you know what I've done to you? You call me teacher and the Lord, and you say, well, for I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he whom sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them. I do not speak concerning all of you. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled. He who eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it comes, that when it does come to pass, you may believe that I am he. Most assuredly I say to you, he who receives whomever I send receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. The word of the Lord. Father, we just want to thank you this morning, for you are the Word. For in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he manifested among flesh, and he came to be among us. So the Word now dwells with us, and in us, and among us. And we thank you for that mystery. And blessed are those who have received that mystery. And we just want to thank you for each and every one who's under my voice this morning, including those who are worshiping with us through live stream, including those who are going to watch this live stream later on in life. I pray for each and every one of them, that your spirit may abide in them, that your truth may abide in them, that, oh Father, that you are going to heal those who need healing. You are going to touch those who need a second touch. May your spirit dwell. I pray that the ears of everyone who's under my voice are going to be sealed with the word of God, that they are going to only hear the word of God, and the word of God is going to be inside of them. And when the word of God is inside of them, that man who comes to steal the word of God out of people's minds will not steal it. That word is going to germinate, and that word is going to bring fruits in your life. Father, we thank you, and we bless your holy name, and we glorify your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. I see we have a few visitors. You are welcome in the house of the Lord. Actually, in the house of the Lord, we do not have visitors. You are children of the Lord in the house of the Lord. So be comfortable in the house of the Lord. Express yourself in any way that you feel the Holy Spirit is saying you should express yourself. Today I'm going to speak about servant leadership. Servant leadership. I think I'll just take the next 30 minutes to talk about servant leadership. There are different types of leadership that are in this world. We have two very popular types of leadership. One of them is called autocratic leadership. This is what we call dictatorship. It is an autocratic leadership. The mantra is, my way is the highway. The dictators, they say, what I say is what must be done. So my way is the highway. We have lots of examples of those in the world. And actually, if you come from Africa, Africa is uniquely represented when it comes to this type of leadership, the dictatorship type of leadership. If you remember this man called Idi Amin from Uganda, Idi Amin would put you in jail because he invited you to a place and you were not smiling. He would put you in jail for that. It was a dictatorship at its worst. And after they removed Idi Amin, a man called Museveni says, I'm going to remove this dictatorship because we do not want the dictatorship. We want to be free. So he kicked him out. And after kicked the dictator out, he did not kick dictatorship out. So you find up to this day, we still have dictatorship there. They say revolutions, they are meant to remove whatever people do not want. But we have had revolution after revolution, because no revolution is always remove what people wanted to be removed at the first place. So we remove one group, and the group that comes follows what that other group was doing. So you find that type of leadership is not one of the best leadership. Now the world is talking about Museveni as a dictator. I think he's one of the, if I'm not mistaken, the longest serving leader. He may have one or two who are ahead of him. Presidents in Africa, they can live for 30 years as a president and continue to lead. What Museveni did recently, he knew that the army can remove me. He knows about coups and everything else, and he heard that there may be a coup that is in the making. So he says, what am I going to do? He takes his son and he makes him the army general. So that way, he knows that his son is not going to remove him from power. He is going to be there for as long as he wants. He has been changing the constitution to make sure that he remains in power. I think it also happened in Burundi recently, and they've been fighting over that. The constitution, that document which is supposed to be sacred, in Africa it is not, because it can be changed any time. So this is one type of leadership, autocratic leadership. In my country, we had our Mugabe, who came and removed the colonial masters, because the colonial masters were dictators. They were few, but they were dominating the rest of the country. And he says, I'm going to bring democracy. And I remember when I was born and growing up, we were hearing this word democracy as if it's the best thing that can ever happen on earth. I'm going to bring democracy. One man, one vote. They forget also to say one woman, one vote. And after all was said and done, we had a new president. I remember when Mugabe was walking, women would remove the chitenges, what do you call them, the rappers, and put it on the floor because they didn't want him to step on the ground. He was almost like worshipped. Long story short, he removed dictatorship and he became a refined dictator himself. He was an educated one with 21 degrees. He knew the constitution, he knew laws, he knew business, he knew everything. He knew what to say and when to say. He was politically correct in every situation. So we ended up with a dictator after removing a dictator. The person who took after him has quickly become a dictator also. So this government this type of leadership is really, really known in Africa. I don't have time to talk about Gaddafi or Paul Biya of Cameroon or al-Bashir of Sudan or Afwerki of Eritrea. We can go on and on. We have many examples of that. In Asia, in Middle East, we also have a few of those ones who, when they are in power, the national pocket becomes the family pocket. Dictators, they want to be served at all times, at all cost. They want to be served at all times, at all cost. One of the classic examples of dictatorship was the Roman Empire. And Nero is one of those guys who took many Christians and he put them where there were lions and say, isn't it that Daniel was put in lions and the lions did not eat Daniel because he was a true worshiper, a true servant of God. So, you guys, you call yourself Christians and you're gathering in your churches, fine. And you put them where there are lions and people were eaten by lions live. That was Nero. Today we have Jong-un of North Korea. North Carolina, North Korea. Right? That's a classic example of what? Dictatorship. It is an autocratic type of government. And we say, no, that type of government is not a good one. We want an alternative type of government. So the West come with an alternative type of government. And they call the type of government what? Democracy. And they have been trying to go to the whole world to impose the democracy, to make sure that the whole world is democratic. And if the whole world is democratic, everything is going to be well. They have imported the democracy to Africa and say, remove those autocratic governments and put a democratic government, a person who have been elected by the majority. And what we ended up with in Africa, we ended up with pseudo-democracy. It is not real democracy. Because if you go to Kenya, the majority are the Kikuyus. And the Kikuyus will say, if we can just be joined by the Luos only, then we are the majority. So at the end of the day, it is not democracy. So you find tribes gaining up in tribes and joining tribes, and they end up in power and they abuse power. So at the end of the day, the alternative, which seems to be better, is not the best. It is not the best. Most governments, and especially in Africa, call themselves they're democratic, but they are not. There is no real separation of power, because democracy, the epitome of it is the separation of power, where we have the executive, which is the president, who has power, but there is power in the judiciary, which is the court system. The court system can say, this is wrong, even to the president, which normally does not happen where we come from. Then, of course, we have the legislative, which is the MPs, the senators, whatever you call them in your country. Those, they make laws, and the judiciary, they interpret laws, and the president, they lead the country. And if this one is trying to abuse laws, or this one stand, there are checks and balances. And if that works, then we say, that's what we are looking for. But we haven't found that. I thought it's in this country, but to some extent. But importing democracy to other countries here failed. And mostly when you import it to East Asia and other countries, it has not really worked. So if autocratic leadership is not good, its alternative democratic government is not really the best. What is the best? Jesus came to teach the third alternative, which is a type of leadership, which is servant leadership. Servant leadership. That's why today we are talking of servant leadership. And the best example of a servant leader is our Lord Jesus Christ himself. His life, his leadership demonstrate that he was a servant leader. In Matthew 20, verse 28 that we read, he says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but he came to serve. Not only to serve, but also to give his life as a ransom. So if we have the best leader at the end of the day, it is going to be a servant leader. An autocratic leader is not. Those who call themselves democratic leaders, they are not. Because at the end of the day, we know how the executive can be so aligned with the judiciary. And at the end of the day, they are the ones who choose the people in the judiciary anyway. They're friends. And when things are coming their way, their friends will stand on behalf of them. So at the end of the day, democracy, as much as it may work, it is not the best. The story goes, Jesus had chosen 12 of his disciples, if you may like. He had a council of 12 leaders. And these are the people who are going to take over the church, who are going to lead the church. And Jesus, the short time that he was on earth, his job is to train those leaders. As I train you, I want you to know that one day I'm not going to be with you. And I want you to take over. And this is the hallmark of leadership. Leadership has to groom the next leader, so that the next leader may take over from there and help the next leader. And leadership continues to be like that. It doesn't normally happen in most African countries, because we have a leader for 30 years, like my leader who was almost 95 years and is still leading. And he hasn't groomed the people for the past 40 years of his leadership. When you ask him who can take over after you, he cannot even mention who can take over after you, because it was an autocratic type of leadership that does not work. The disciples, when they heard Jesus saying, I am going to be out of the way one day, and I want you guys to lead in the proper way. They did not really understand this because they thought that Jesus was the king who was prophesied, and of course he was. But he was the king who's going to come and remove this Roman system, and we are going to be free. They did not understand that how could a leader come and now he's starting to talk about dying. We think you are our savior who's going to save us from this Roman system that has been oppressing us. Now we are talking about dying. So they were like, is this the Jesus that we're waiting for? Is it the king who was prophesied in the Old Testament that we are waiting for? Because what they are expecting is a strong man. They are expecting what? A strong man. And the examples of kings that they know were strongman type. So they are not understanding this whole thing. And Jesus says, you have to imitate me. You have to do what I do. So the type of leadership that Jesus was showing, it was not a theoretical leadership. It was a leadership that was practical and pragmatic. It was a leadership that says, I'll do it and see what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is what you ought to do. For what I'm doing is what is the right thing to do. When you start to talk about he's leaving one day, there is a mother of the sons of Zebedee. The mother came to Jesus. And she came and she kneeled before Jesus. She showed all the respect to Jesus. And Jesus knew that this is the mother of my disciples who's coming to me and who's kneeling. Woman, come over. What is your wish? I have a request to you, sir. Come over, let me know. What is your request? And she says, I wanted you to do me this favor, Jesus, that when you are in your kingdom, because he was talking about his kingdom, when you are now in your kingdom, I would want my two sons, John, to be to your right, and James to be to your left. And Jesus was taken aback by that request, because the majority of people who came to Jesus, they came and say, my son has died. Or my son is sick to the point of death. Or is in the case of Lazarus, our brother has died. So he is used to the request that are life and death type of request. And he is there to show that he is a son of God. But this type of request, he didn't think about it until it came to him. My request, sir, is for my two sons to be most elevated in your kingdom. One to the right and one to the left. Woman, you don't know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink? Will you be baptized with the same baptism that I'm about to be baptized? The Bible says, they said to him, meaning that it was not one person, right? They said to him, we are able. Who are the people who are saying we are able? You get it. It is James and John who are in a chorus with their mother. We are able to do that. Then for a second, Jesus says, I know what these people, they don't know what they are really asking for. They don't really know what they are bargaining for. And he's thinking, they have asked. I'm the one who taught people that knock and the door shall be open. Ask, it shall be given. So now people have come to ask me, what am I going to do? Not to condemn the mother of Zebedee's sons. That's not my intention here. Actually, she was a wonderful, wonderful mother. For Jesus to come on earth and choose 12 people, and it happens that 2 of her sons are the ones who are chosen by Jesus, that's a big deal. You get it, right? So I don't want you to think that I want to condemn her necessarily. And I think she is a product of her environment. We are products of our societies. If you are surprised why our society is what it is like because we are part of it. And here, She's part of your environment. She sees kings are elevated. She also wants her sons to be elevated. If I was thinking for a moment, I would like, but Mom, why do you want your 2 sons? I mean, there are 12 of them. I would understand, Mom, if you say one of them to be in the right, and you can choose one of the 10 to be in the other. I want me, myself, mine. Don't even condemn us, because that's what we are. And in this culture, the Western culture, I've never seen a culture that is so individualistic like the Western culture. So that's who we are. We want it myself, my way. It has to be me. I'm supposed to be the first. I'm supposed to be the best. To the extent that if the Lord is raising this lady, I would rather sabotage her than support her. Because I would want it, either it has to be me or no one. Jesus, for a moment, is thinking. 1, they don't know what they're asking about. Number 2, they said they would drink the cup that I am going to drink. They would have the same baptism that I will have. What am I going to do? It reminds me how people get into power back in my continent. Everybody wants to be related or to be connected to the politician, let's say the governor. And the governor, when you become close to the governor, then the governor has to introduce you to the MP or the senator, and you end up, being connected that way. And people go out of their way to try to be connected. When you are connected, you end up getting probably a big job in the state. It reminds me in my country, one time the person who was in charge of the water system, the water that runs in the whole city, that person did not have a degree in engineering at all. He had a degree in psychology. I don't know what psychology has anything to do with the water system, but because this man was connected politically, he ends up in charge. When he ends up in charge, wise people come and say, because you don't have engineering, find people who are engineers, who you surround yourself with. And when you surround yourself with those people, they can run the water system well. He did. And he surrounded himself with one of the best engineers in the country. But because they were educated, they will speak up and say, this is the amount of money that we want, this is money for chemicals, this is money for that. And they were speaking up loud. And he felt challenged. And because he felt challenged, he fired the board, he fired everybody. And the next day, the water system is on the ground again. And he found a good, a plan. Why not find my relatives? And why not find my friends and I can put them in the board? People who are yes men, yes sir, yes madam. And he surrounded himself with people who just say yes. And those people, could they revive the water system? They could not. People who had degrees in music were the managers in the water system. People who had a degree in art design, were working in the water system. He surrounded the water system with all his relatives and all his friends. And he would go to the government and give them millions and millions of dollars, and nothing was working. Goodness, that's why things happen the way that they happen in Africa, isn't it? So Jesus responded to the mother of Zebedee, okay, your sons will indeed drink my cup, and they'll be baptized in my baptism. But to sit on my right hand and my left hand is not for me to give. It is for those who are prepared for that. It's like my Father knows who are going to sit there already. And she was okay. She was happy about that. But she didn't know what she had actually done. She didn't know what she had actually asked for. She didn't even know what is the cup that Jesus was going to drink. Because the time when that cup was coming, even Jesus himself knew that this is not an easy cup. That to the extent that he went to the Father and said, Father, Father, if it were possible, may this cup pass by. Himself, he was not, it was not a cup that you can just say, give me, I'm ready to drink. It was a tough cup. And they said, yeah, we'll drink it. The baptism that Jesus was going to be baptized with, it is the baptism of dying 3 days and coming up. And they did not know. The mother of Zebedee is thinking of baptism in the real sense of baptism. And they will drink the same cup with you, Jesus. They will be baptized in the same way that you are going to be baptized. Long story short, of the 12 disciples, the first 2 to die were the sons of Zebedee. They were now drinking the cup and getting the baptism. And I think if I were the mother of Zebedee, I was going to go to Jesus and cry and say, Jesus, I say I want my son to be the right and to the left. Now they've died. How can you leave my children to die? And Jesus will say, yeah, they've drink my cup. They have drink my cup. The story goes, when the 10 other disciples, remember, she's advocating for who? For 2. And disciples were how many? 12. So the 10 other disciples, when they heard the conversation of Zebedee's mother and his sons and Jesus, the Bible says they were so displeased by those 2 brothers. They said, but how could they do that? If one of them wanted to be in the right side of Jesus, would understand. Then one of the 10 could be, how could they want these positions? Jesus used this opportunity as a teaching opportunity. He used this opportunity as a teaching opportunity. He told them, the type of leadership that I've come to teach you is not like the type of leadership of the Gentiles. Because the Gentiles lord it over the people that they lead. Lording it over to the people that you lead is an autocratic type of government. The government that we are so much used to in our continent. Lord it over to them. You ask people to do what you do not want to do yourself. In my country, it was the 2nd or the 3rd most taxed country on earth. And yet, we were not in war. We were not in any situation that, the government was supposed to take that amount of money. The government will almost break even with you. You work, you get 80,000, taxes are almost like 40,000. But when themselves now are no longer in power, they complain about my money is being taxed, it's taken away. But exactly that's what they were doing. They lord it over. The Gentiles, they lord it over. They are dictators. So Jesus is saying, I did not come for that type of leadership. I don't want you guys, when I leave, for you to lord it over the people that you are going to be leading. I don't want you even to be democratic leaders. I don't want you to be autocratic leaders. I don't even want you to be democratic leaders. What I want is verse 26. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be a servant first. Whoever wants to be in a leadership position, let him be a servant first. So the type of leadership that I'm bringing to you is servant leadership. Whoever wants to be first, who desires to be first, verse 27, whoever desires to be first among you, let him be a slave first. And they were like, what is he talking about? How can I be a leader who is serving? A leader must lead. and people must serve. Jesus is introducing a type of leadership that we so desire. And this is the perfect leadership. Let it be done on earth as it is in heaven. This is the type of leadership, the right leadership. We know that slaves and servants, they provide service. All their job is to serve. So Jesus is saying, I came to serve. I have told you this is the type of leader that I am. Verse 28, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. So Jesus is saying, I came as a slave to you. I came as a servant to you. So I want you to imitate what I do. I want you to learn from what I do. I want you to be servants as you lead. Servant and leader, in most people's understanding, they are the opposites. How can you be opposite? But Jesus say they are not opposite per se. A good leader is a leader who serves. So Jesus' life on earth, if I would summarize it, he spent time teaching the word, training his disciples and other disciples who are going to do the work of God. He spent time teaching multitudes of people the right living, the right doctrine. His teaching. He spent time healing the sick. He spent time casting demons and setting people free. He was walking on foot most of the time from one place to the other. Here and there, he would get into a boat going to the other side. He spent time moving from region to region, setting people free, teaching people, feeding the hungry, taking care of the vulnerable, the weak, the poor. That's what he spent time with. Yet he was God himself. And when he came, he was saving people. He spent his life saving people. And there's an example that we heard in John 13 as I'm finishing up. Jesus is about to die. He has seen everything that was prophesied coming into place. And he knows that his time to go is near. So Jesus took a basin of water and he put water in the basin. And when he put water in the basin, he took a towel and he says, bring that towel to me. And he put his towel and he says, disciple one after the other. I want you to come, remove your shoes. I want to wash your feet. I want to dry your feet. I want to serve you. And disciple after the other, they started to come to Jesus to wash feet. I don't know your feet. You guys, you may have the best feet. But I've kind of seen few feet down the line that when you remove the socks, the room starts to have a certain scent. You know what I'm talking about? Most people, when they remove their socks, the room is going to smell. You know, it reminds me when we were in Form 3 in class, you know, and it was hot, you know, in September when it becomes so hot in Southern Africa. Very hot. You know, so people who were kind of rich, they would come with shoes. Then during lunch, they take the rafters or the slippers, you know, so that their feet are free. And, you know, we are doing lessons afternoon. You know, some of us, we did not have that, a few of us. So people would remove the shoes so that their feet would breathe a little bit. And people were like, oh my goodness, who has killed us in this class? Jesus is about to wash their feet. Remember, the mode of transport during that day was walking. They were walking. And their feet is dusty. And Jesus wants, and people, you know, they are prickled, you know, as they walk. So when a visitor comes and arrives at your house, what happens is like, they will sit on a place like this. So they lie down. The head is where if it's elevated, and down there they put their feet. And the servant of the house is the one who will take water and come to the feet. This person may be even eating because he's lying down and he has been given dinner and is eating, but the servant's job was to come to remove the shoes of this person, kneel down, wash the feet, and take the towel and dry the feet, and take the ointment and anoint the feet of the visitor. It was done by the servant. Most of you coming from our continent, we have servants in our houses. Those that we call them, housemaids, what do you call them in another country? Domestic workers, what else do you call them? What did you say? Yeah, in Zimbabwe, we just call them CC. So the word CC is a shortcut of sister, CC. So CC is the one who cooks, is the one who cleans, is one who does everything. When visitors come, CC, who was cooking the whole day, does not eat. He has to give people food, and when everybody's finished, whatever remains is what CC eats. You get it, right? Just like, so CC is the servant of the house. CC is the one who makes life easier for others. So this is not, the head of the house will not do that. The children of the house will not do that. It was the job of the servant. It was the job of the servant. So Jesus wants to demonstrate servant leadership. And he says, I must be a servant first so that I can lead, so that they can see the picture of the type of leadership that I'm bringing on earth. So he washed one. He dried with a towel. Perhaps he took some anointing oil and anointed the feet and say next. And Peter, I guess Peter was the next. Peter says, Jesus, what are you doing? Washing our feet? Never, you never. That's the word you use, what? Never. You never wash my feet. Because I called you rabbi. I called you teacher. I called you master. How can my master wash me? I'm the one who's supposed to wash my master. Then Jesus, being so wise, says, Peter, it's up to you. If I do not wash your feet, you are not part of me. Then Peter says, no, I want to be part of you. So don't wash my feet only. When you wash my feet, wash my hands, wash my head, because I want to be really, really part of you. Because he also doesn't understand what Jesus is doing. He doesn't understand what Jesus is doing. So he says, no, Peter, I'm kind of busy right now. I'm not going to wash your head and your hands. All what I'm going to do is to wash your feet. If you have bathed in the morning, you should be clean. All what I want to wash is your feet. I don't know why Jesus washed the feet. And I understand there's an aspect that was the culture. That was to show hospitality to visitors who are coming. So next time that I visit your house, I would want you to wash my feet. I hear someone says, Pastor, don't even visit my house then. After he washed all of them's feet, Jesus said, I've shown you the type of leadership. That is the right leadership. That is the correct leadership. And when I am out of the way, I want you to wash each other's feet also. I want whoever wants to be the leader to be a servant first. There are some instances when Jesus shows a servant type of leadership. There's one time that the disciples had spent the whole night catching fish or something like that. And, when they come out and they see Jesus, and Jesus made some fish for them. Do you remember that? He cooked fish for them. Just to think, Jesus cooking for you. Just to think about that. And think about your president. Just think about your president for a minute. And you visited the house of your president. And the president says, oh, you know what? My wife is going to wash your feet right now. Just relax. and the president himself take an apron and run to do fish fry for you? That's servant leadership. Servant leadership is, at the end of the day, I want to serve you. I want to serve you. Yes, I've been given authority to be the head, but at the same time, I'm here to serve you. I want you to reflect a little bit before I finish. What sort of leader are you? Because everybody is a leader in some capacity, in some place. What sort of leader are you? Are you the type of leader who wants to sit on the high table and be served? Are you the type of leader who wants to serve? Husbands, you are leaders. What sort of leader are you in your own household? Are you the one who say, you know what, my wife, I know that you are tired. Relax, sit down. I'll fix stuff here. Or are you the one, even when your wife is sick, you are the one who says, hey, your sickness is just the feet that is the problem. The hands can still fix dinner. What sort of leader are you? Wives, you are leaders also. How do you lead your children? How do you lead your homes? As pastors, we are leaders. How do we lead our congregations? Are we waiting to be served, or are we there to serve?